Today is Saturday, March 25th. Do you find it kind of hard to focus sometimes? It might not be that you're just bored or undisciplined. Research shows all the screens we use each day might be reshaping our brains and shortening our attention spans. Later, I'm speaking to an expert who has spent the last 3 decades studying how technology impacts our attention and what we may be able to do about it. But first, we are talking about a medical reason some people struggle to stay on task: attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, also known as ADHD. The number of people diagnosed with ADHD has gone up in recent years, causing a surge in demand for ADHD prescription medications, and now a shortage of drugs like Adderall. We're hearing insights from pediatric neurologist Dr. Sarah Cheyette. She regularly treats ADHD patients and has written 3 books about the condition. We'll get into why there's been an uptick in diagnoses, why it can be difficult to diagnose, and also how technology might be playing a role. Plus, she shares her top advice for how we can all improve our focus even without medication. Welcome to the Newsworthy Special Edition Saturday, when we sit down with a different expert or celebrity every Saturday to talk about something in the news. Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for our regular episodes, where we provide all the day's news in 10 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. It's now time for today's Special Edition Saturday. Dr. Sarah Cheyette, thank you for coming on the Newsworthy.
Hey, thanks for having me here, Erica. It's a real honor to be here.
So first, briefly explain for us or describe and summarize what ADHD is, and then what the most common symptoms of it are.
Everybody focuses sometimes, and everybody's not focused sometimes, right? So it's like having one thing on the top of your desk and everything else put away in the drawers. When you're not focused, it's like everything keeps jumping on your desk. One thing jumps, the other thing jumps, and you wind up with 20 things that are equally important to your brain. Your brain doesn't know which one is more important, so it jumps from thing to thing to thing. What ADHD means is that you're in the not focused state way too much of the time, and for no other reason.
The number of people diagnosed with ADHD has been on the rise for several years, and my understanding is that that's especially true in adults. So what do you think is behind this increase?
One question is whether these people were walking around all along and just not being noticed or recognized. That is a big driver of some of the numbers, I think. Another issue could be the electronics, right? So we're all stimulated by lots of different things. We have to switch tasks really fast. That could play a role. And particularly in adults used to go to their doctor for anxiety and depression. The symptoms of those can overlap with ADHD as well.
And there's so much here I want to follow up on. I mean, the technology piece is interesting because I've heard people say, everyone or a lot of people have some sort of ADHD at this point because of technology. I mean, in your medical opinion, has technology impacted our ability to focus? And is it actually potentially linked to causing or an uptick in ADHD cases?
Erica, I think that if you do anything for multiple hours per day, it trains your brain to think in that way. So if you are doing any sort of screens, and by this I mainly mean recreational screens, things where you have to switch things back and forth and then have, lots of good-looking people and snappy dialogue and bright, shiny stuff. Yeah, I think it changes your brain. And then you have to take that brain and use it for the real life, and it's not going to work as well.
And is that considered then ADHD, or is it just... It's complicated, it sounds like.
Oh, it's so complicated because I think the diagnosis of ADHD is different from other medical issues in that we don't have an objective test. But also there's been more awareness, and just in general, people talk about diagnoses more than they used to. They talk about them on YouTube. They talk about them on Twitter. They talk about them on Instagram and all sorts of Reddits and this and that. Not to mention TikTok. People get little bits of information that way. And because this is something that everyone can relate to, it's sort of a difference of normal behavior. It's not like a schizophrenic who's having hallucinations. I can't relate to that, but I can relate to times when I am inattentive or unfocused. So because everyone can relate to that, people go, oh, maybe that's me. And some of them are and some of them aren't.
So what's your advice for the average person or a parent who notices something in their kid? At what point is it time to talk to your doctor? Or maybe this is beyond what other people are dealing with when it comes to focus and attention.
What I do tell people is that you want to see how much it's impacting your life. So you don't just have focus issues for biology class or for, meetings at work. It's supposed to be something that affects you in multiple areas of your life. It should be said that some of the ADHDers are some of the best focusers in the world if the situation is correct. So, like, if they're very interested in something, if they have ownership of the problem, if they want to do the thing, they may be able to focus very well. So, ADHD doesn't mean can't focus. And that's a really important point because a lot of people will come and say, well, of course, my child or my spouse doesn't have ADHD. I see them paying attention when they want to. I see them paying attention to Legos or video games or whatever it is, but they have a hard time remembering the little rote things they're supposed to do. Yes, that still can be ADHD.
So when we're talking about solutions, I'm sure there are certain strategies, and one of those includes a prescription drug. And I want to talk about Adderall specifically because of a nationwide shortage that's been going on for several months at this point. Can you just help people understand what's behind this shortage? And then also, how is this impacting people with ADHD?
The shortage is a shortage of all the stimulant medications. So it's not just Adderall, although it started that way. The stimulant categories are things like Ritalin and Adderall, and they all have, there's sort of different forms. So these medications are all short. You can't just like walk in and substitute one for the other because some people are very, very sensitive. So unfortunately, I've had people who've been off their medicine for months because of this shortage. They just can't find what they need.
What do you do?
The first thing we do is tell people to call around different pharmacies. But unfortunately, because these are controlled substances, many pharmacies won't tell the patient whether they have it in stock or not. I just have to keep sending the prescription to different places. I do try to substitute when I think I can. And that works sometimes and it doesn't work sometimes. But you also have insurance limitations. Sometimes people are on a medication because that's the one their insurance covered. And if I switch to another, it's $300 out of pocket per month. It's tough.
What's behind this?
Many people suspect that the rise in the number of prescriptions is behind this. This is a Schedule II medication, meaning that the DEA has designated as highly addictive. I personally, and there is evidence to back this up, at low doses, these medicines, I believe, are no more addictive than coffee. Because of this Schedule II that these medicines are put on, then what happens is that the pharmacies each have a limited amount that they can order. And if they sort of use up that quantity for the month, they're out until the next month. So pharmacies are using up their quotas of medication, most likely because of more adults and children who are benefiting from these medications.
In the meantime, what's your one or two top strategies for the average ADHD patient, and I'm sure it can vary, to overcome their symptoms without drugs? Or what are some of the strategies that you tell your patients that don't involve a prescription medication?
The strategies that I'm giving to ADHDers are the same strategies that I use on a daily basis. Goal setting is one of the top things that I talk about. Everybody will focus better when they see the point and when they decide to do something. So the more clarity you have in what you do, that's good. And this could be for kids too. If your goal is for them to get to school on time and their goal is to stay in their pajamas for as long as they can, well, they're not going to get to school on time until they have that goal. Another thing is turning off the electronics. You don't have to have your phone with you all the time. If I had to lose weight and I put cookies every 10 feet in my house, you'd think I was not too bright, I think, or you'd think I didn't really want to lose weight. And the same thing is true of the electronics.
Okay, so let's dive deeper into how technology, and especially social media, influences our brains. Our next guest has done the research, and she found how long our attention spans are now. Think seconds, not minutes. I'm joined by Dr. Gloria Mark, a psychologist and the University of California's Chancellor Professor of Informatics. Her new book is called Attention Span, a groundbreaking way to restore balance, happiness, and productivity. But first, a quick break to thank our sponsors. The Newsworthy is brought to you by ZocDoc. I understand doctors are busy, but I still expect a certain level of attention and care when I go in for an appointment. If I ever feel like a doctor is rushing me through the office or not willing to answer my questions, that's a cue for me to start researching and find a new doctor who can focus on me, listen, and prioritize my health and my understanding of what's going on. And when I need a new doctor, ZocDoc is part of that research process. ZocDoc is the only free app that lets you find and book doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, are available when you need them, and treat almost every condition under the sun. In fact, millions of people use ZocDoc's free app to find and book a doctor in their neighborhood who is patient-reviewed and fits their needs and schedule just right. Yes, it's free. Go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free and find and book a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. And thank you to our other sponsor, Rothy's. With Rothy's shoes and bags, you can upgrade your wardrobe in a chic and sustainable way. Everything at Rothy's is sustainably made with their signature thread repurposed from single-use plastic bottles. Rothy's are durably designed so you can keep them in your closet longer. You can even pop them in the washing machine when they need refreshing. I appreciate that they are high quality and oh so comfortable, so I don't have to worry about my feet hurting when I'm on the go. We are too busy for that. I also love that I can wear my Rothy's flats for so many different things, whether it's a quick errand or a fancy brunch. Rothy's shoes go with everything. I can wear them in any season, but I do especially love wearing Rothy's flats in the spring. So re-energize your spring looks with Rothy's vibrant shoes and bags in an irresistible range of bright hues. 45,000 five-star reviews and counting cannot be wrong. For stylish and sustainable shoes, shop Rothy's. Get $20 off your first purchase at rothys.com/newsworthy. That's $20 off your first purchase at ROTHYS, rothys.com/newsworthy. Okay, now to my conversation with Dr. Gloria Mark. Dr. Gloria Mark, thank you so much for coming on the Newsworthy.
Thank you so much for having me.
So first, what have you found in your research about the actual impact of technology, including social media, on our attention spans?
I've been tracking attention spans empirically for over 20 years. And back in 2004, we found that people's attention on any screen averaged about 2.5 minutes. And, as I've been tracking it over the years, using computer logging techniques, we find in the last 5 or 6 years that attention spans average about 47 seconds on any screen before people switch their attention.
47 seconds. What's your reaction to that and seeing that decline?
I was surprised. I was actually surprised back in 2004 when it was 2.5 minutes. I thought, wow, how can we get anything done? If we look at the median means the midpoint, that's 40 seconds. That means that half of all of our observations showed attention spans to be 40 seconds or less.
Here we have a 47-second attention span on a screen, and yet I know a lot of people feel like hours can go by on social media and they did nothing but scroll, and then they feel so unproductive and guilty. So what is it about social media that does that?
So social media, it's engaging. It usually involves very little mental effort. Playing simple games. That's why people spend a lot of time on Candy Crush, and people get rewarded. Now, when you're on social media, every single TikTok video is not going to bring a reward. But every so often, there's a video that comes along and it's going to be hilarious. And that's called randomly reinforced intermittent conditioning. So that means that on a random interval basis, we get a reward. And it's enough to keep us stuck on social media. And of course, we're social creatures and we seek social rewards and we seek connections with other people. So we're just drawn to social media to see what other people are up to. It's just our natures as humans
And so should we just delete the apps, or what's the solution?
If you can delete the apps and it will make you happy, go ahead and do it. But, we live in a technological world. The ship has sailed. What I will say is that, we've really overdone it with social media in having thousands of connections, because we can't possibly have meaningful relationships with more than 150 people, according to a sociologist named Robin Dunbar. And so, when we have all these additional people in our social network, this can distract us. So I would say, if you don't want to delete your social media account, that's fine. But maybe you want to do some house cleaning. Focus on those connections with people who you really want to maintain some kind of meaningful relationship with.
We've all heard the strategy to just turn off notifications. Is that enough?
It's certainly an important part, but it's not enough. And the reason it's not enough is because it turns out that we are just as likely to interrupt ourselves as we are to be interrupted from something external to us. So yes, you can turn off your notifications, you can use ad blockers, but that's not the full picture. We have urges to, switch screens, to check news, social media, to play simple games. And so it's also a matter of containing our urges and being able to control our attention and direct it to where we want it to be.
I guess, what would you tell people who just feel guilty about not being able to control themselves with some of these things?
We live in a world that has all kinds of technological influences on us. We're social creatures. There are social influences. So don't be so hard on yourself and put the full burden on yourself. For example, the internet itself was designed to distract us. When you're on a Wikipedia page or some other web page and, exposed to all kinds of different ideas, it sets off just a firestorm of associations in our minds. And we go back and forth from clicking on links, coming up with new associations. So we can't just blame our lack of willpower.
Do you subscribe to the kind of interval work where maybe you set a timer and then make sure that you're taking those breaks?
That can work for some people, but I am more in favor that people get in touch with understanding their own personal rhythms. And if they have resources and you're working on something, it's not a good idea to stop. But if you start to feel like your resources are getting expended, then it's really important to pull back, take a break. The best break of all is to walk outside for 20 minutes in nature. And our research showed that people can have significantly greater divergent thinking. And that means thinking of more ideas and different kinds of ideas.
Do you expect that 47-second attention span that we have now to continue to get shorter and shorter? And what's the potential impact of that?
It probably won't get much shorter, but I do think that there will be some kind of course correction, whether it's coming from technology solutions, organizational solutions, societal solutions. So if we can get people to detach from work and really replenish their resources and, get better quality sleep, which will happen if you're not working through the night, then we can expect attention spans to be longer.
Well, thank you to both of our guests for sharing their expertise. Dr. Sarah Cheyette's most recent book is ADHD Me, and Dr. Gloria Mark's new book, Attention Span, is also now available. Check out the links in our show notes for more information about both. And of course, be sure to tune back into the Newsworthy for our next weekday episode. Our 10-minute news roundups are available every Monday through Friday, beginning at 4 a.m. So we'll be back on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend.